You are 19 years old. 2 days ago, you were sweeping floors at a mill, punching out at 5, eating whatever your mother left warming on the stove, falling asleep in a bed that knew the shape of your body. Today you are standing in a waterlogged field somewhere in France, dressed in a uniform 3 sizes too large, gripping a rifle you have held exactly 4 times in your life. The drill sergeant gets so close to your face you can see the broken capillaries in his nose. His breath is tobacco and fury. He calls you a waste of a uniform. He calls you a liability. He tells you that you will be dead within the week unless you learn to stop thinking and start obeying. You have no reason to doubt him. Everything about him, the scar, the posture, the dead calm behind his eyes, tells you he has buried men who thought they knew better. Beside you, 1,000 other boys stand in uneven rows. Former shop boys, former farmhands, former students who had been 3 weeks from finishing their degrees when the letter arrived. Now, all of that is gone. Now you are interchangeable, expendable. The army does not need soldiers so much as it needs bodies because the bodies keep disappearing faster than the maps can account for. The train that brought you here was not built for passengers. It was built for livestock. You stood for 3 days in the dark, shoulder to shoulder with strangers, breathing the same stale air, unable to sit, unable to sleep, barely able to move your arms. Now you march. The boots split the skin of your heels within the first mile. The leather has never been broken in, and no one intends to wait for it. You march until the blood soaks through your socks. Then you march further. You sleep in barns and open fields and patches of mud so cold it feels like stone. The food given to you is not food so much as a punishment for being alive. Hard biscuits that could chip a molar. Canned meat, the veterans call by names that tell you everything you need to know about how it tastes. The older soldiers watch you eat it without expression. They have seen this before. They know where you are going. You do not. Not yet. You have arrived at the front. The trenches unspool in both directions as far as you can see, jagging and cutting across the earth like something torn rather than dug. They tell you the line stretches from Switzerland all the way to the Belgian coast. Hundreds of miles of open wounds in the ground, each one full of men waiting to kill or be killed. You step down into the trench and your boot sinks immediately into cold, dark water up to your shin. This is your address now. You will live in this channel of mud and timber for weeks at a stretch, rotating between the front line, the support trench, and the reserve. The walls are shored up with rotting planks and sandbags that leak. The floor is a series of wooden slats laid over mud that shift and sink and occasionally disappear entirely. The mud is not just a nuisance, it is a presence. It gets into everything. Your rifle, your rations, the folds of your skin. Men have drowned in it. Shell craters fill with groundwater and become unmarked graves. You learn the rhythm of the front quickly because the rhythm is the only thing keeping you breathing. Stand to at first light. Every man on the fire step, fixed bayonet, watching the gray wasteland of no man's land for movement. The attack almost never comes. You stand ready anyway because every man who ever relaxed at dawn is no longer alive to tell you about it. Then stand down. Breakfast. Work. You fill sandbags until your shoulders stop working. You repair sections of wall that the overnight shelling has caved in. You bail water that returns faster than you can remove it. The rats treat the trench as their own. They have grown enormous on what lies rotting between the wire. They have no fear of you. At night they use your body as a path. The first time one runs across your face, you wake up screaming. By the end of the first week, you do not wake up at all. The lice are a different category of misery. They are in your collar, your hair, your armpits, every warm and hidden place on your body. The itching is constant. Men scratch themselves raw, skin breaks open and becomes infected. A sickness moves through the unit that the doctors cannot fully name, something the lice carry, that leaves you shaking and hollowed out. You get sick, you get better, you get sick again. This is the shape of your days now. 3 months have passed. In this war, that is enough to make you an old hand. Most of the men who were standing in line when you arrived are gone. dead or wounded or transferred or carried out on a stretcher with their eyes fixed on a point no one else could see. The sergeant takes a marker to your sleeve, 1 stripe. You are a lance corporal, the lowest form of leadership the army recognizes. You have 4 men under you. Your job, as far as you understand it, is to keep them from dying through carelessness. Careless deaths are the most common kind. Men who rise above the parapet to stretch their back and meet a sniper's round. Men who cup a lit cigarette in cupped hands at night and paint a target on themselves. Men who drift off on watch and wake up with German hands around their throat, or do not wake up at all. You are responsible now for fire discipline. When enemy patrols probe your section in the dark, you decide when to open fire and when to hold. Fire too early and you reveal your position. Hold too long and they are already climbing over the sandbags. You learn the vocabulary of the front, the flat crack of a rifle, the hollow thud of a mortar leaving its tube, the specific rising shriek of incoming artillery. That means you have perhaps 2 seconds to press yourself into the earth before the world comes apart. You learn to distinguish German ordnance from your own by the pitch. You learn which sections of trench a man can stand upright in and which will cost him his head. You use the periscopes. You teach your men to use them. Your men look to you for a certainty you do not possess. Some of them are older than you. One of them has 3 children. He waits for a 19-year-old to tell him when it is safe to sleep. The weight of that is something you did not expect. You make mistakes. One of your men stands up for a moment and a bullet solves the question of whether he should have. You write the letter to his wife. You describe a clean death, a quick one that did not hurt. Everyone writes those letters. The truth belongs to no one. 2 stripes now. You are the section second in command. 8 to 12 men depending on how recent the last attack was, which means the section is almost never full. There is always a gap where someone used to be. The section leader, a sergeant with a face like old leather, leans on you for the small things that add up to survival. The watch rotation, the ammunition count, the rifle inspections that are not optional because a rifle clogged with mud will jam at the moment you need it most. And a jammed rifle is a headstone. You lead night patrols now, out through the wire on your stomach, moving in silence, listening for voices, counting the spacing of the enemy's posts. The wire stretches everywhere between the lines, barbed coils on wooden stakes, designed with one purpose, to slow a man down long enough for a machine gun to find him. You learn to move through it the way water moves, silently, without resistance. The first man you kill in close combat is young. German, maybe 19, caught in the wire on a raid, arms raised when he sees you come out of the dark. But you have been told the rules of raiding: no prisoners. They slow you down. A gunshot carries to every German sentry within 500 yards. You use your bayonet. It is nothing like the training dummies. He does not go limp the way they told you he would. He grabs at your hands, at the blade. He makes sounds you will be hearing for the rest of your life. He had a photograph in his breast pocket, a young woman standing in front of a fence, squinting into the sun. You leave it with him. You go back to your own line. You do not speak of it. You do not stop doing the job. You cannot afford to stop doing the job. Keep your men breathing. Kill the enemy. Make it to morning. You have been promoted over the graves of the men who held this rank before you. The sergeant who shaped you into a soldier caught a piece of shrapnel through the side of his neck during a morning bombardment. You were close enough that his blood crossed your face. He tried to form words. Final instructions? Maybe. Final curses. What came out was only air and wet sound. He died before anyone could do anything about it. Now the chevrons are on your sleeve and the section is yours. 10 men, sometimes more when other units bleed into yours. You are the spine of the company. Officers rotate through like weather. Killed, promoted, evacuated with shell shock, replaced by someone younger and more frightened. The average life expectancy of a new second lieutenant is 6 weeks. NCOs like you are the only continuity the men have. The captain decides what happens. You make it happen. When the order arriving from on high is tactically absurd, issued by men whose understanding of the front line comes from briefing maps and not from standing in it. You adjust it, just enough to keep your section alive, not so much that it becomes insubordination. That is the sergeant's art, knowing the distance between flexibility and defiance. Your men believe in you because you have been here longer than anyone. 4 major actions, a dozen small ones. Gassed twice, wounded 3 times. They assume that means you know something. The truth is simpler and darker. You are lucky. Skill helps. Luck is what keeps you breathing. A random shell falls where it falls, regardless of how good a soldier you are. You have watched better men than you get turned into nothing by shells that did not care who they landed on. But the men need an anchor. So you be the anchor. Father, confessor, the thing between them and the void. Someone has to be. It might as well be you. The captain calls you into the dugout. It smells of damp timber and candle wax. He pours you something and offers you the senior enlisted position in the company. Company Sergeant Major. You are now the highest-ranking non-commissioned man in a unit of 200 soldiers. Your function is translation. The officers were educated somewhere expensive. They carry themselves differently, think differently. They use language as a social instrument rather than a practical one. They do not speak the language of the men, and the men do not trust theirs. You stand in the space between. You take what the captain orders and turn it into something the men can hear and execute. You take what the men feel and present it upward in a form the captain will accept without becoming defensive. The complaints about rations, about equipment that does not work, about the endlessness of the dying, all of that passes through you, filtered and reframed. You manage discipline. When a man is found asleep at his post, you decide whether it ends with a reprimand or a court-martial. Falling asleep on watch carries the death penalty. You now hold that lever. When supplies come in, you oversee the distribution. Rum, cigarettes, mail. You deliver the letters personally, because you understand what they mean to men who have nothing else to hold on to. You know which men are crumbling, whose wife has stopped writing, whose child has taken sick. You carry 200 men's grief inside your chest, and you do not show it, because showing it would break the only thing keeping them together. You command the company, 200 on paper, 150 in practice with gaps the replacements fill badly and briefly. They come in looking the way you once looked, and they are gone before you've learned their faces. You hold a section of the line, a few hundred yards of trench and wire and everything that has happened in it. It is not a significant position. Nothing pivotal happens here. But if it falls, the units on either side are exposed, so you hold it. You rotate your platoons in and out of the front with the mechanical regularity of a man who has accepted that this is simply how time passes now. Front line, support, reserve. The front is grinding and sleepless. Support is labor. Reserve is the nearest thing to peace you know anymore. Warm food, a few hours of sleep, a letter you can actually sit down to write. You have become a logistics specialist without meaning to. You know that water is more important than ammunition. You know the quartermaster's weakness, and you exploit it because your company's survival depends on getting more than your official allocation. Everyone exploits the quartermaster. It is the parallel economy of the war. The condolence letters go out every week. You have a template in your mind now, not out of callousness but out of necessity. Words arranged to carry the maximum comfort and the minimum truth. The truth would only multiply the suffering. You tell yourself the letters are a kindness. Most nights, you believe it. You are on battalion staff now, second in command of 800 men. You are a manager of systems, supply chains, communication lines, artillery coordination, inter-unit scheduling. You work from maps and telephones in a dugout several hundred yards back from the real fighting. You hate it, which surprises you. You thought you wanted distance from the front. Now that you have it, the distance feels like a different kind of wound. In the trenches, the danger was physical and direct. Here it is institutional. Colonels who need someone to carry the blame for a failed operation. Generals who present impossible objectives and respond to failure with demands for explanation. staff officers competing for the same narrow channel of advancement. You learn to write reports that transform disasters into setbacks, and setbacks into lessons. You learn to name the weather, the terrain, the unanticipated enemy reinforcement as the cause of things that were doomed in the planning room. You spend long hours coordinating artillery schedules with adjacent units. You calculate shell-to-meter ratios. You think about the industrial output of the war with the same part of your mind you once used to think about the men in the trench. The war has become a machine. You are one of its components. You do the job. You command the battalion. 800 men at full strength. You are never at full strength. The casualties are a steady current, replaced by recruits who look younger each month, who step into the line and vanish, and are replaced by others who look even younger. Your job is to receive orders from brigade and turn them into coordinated action across your 4 companies. The orders come from above, from generals in houses with glass in the windows and wine in the cellar, men who study the front on maps, the way chess players study a board. They draw arrows. You are expected to make the arrows real. Sometimes the orders reflect genuine tactical thinking, a limited operation with attainable objectives. Sometimes they are the product of political pressure and institutional optimism and bear no relationship to what the ground actually looks like. You follow them regardless. Refusal is a court-martial. Loud objection is a transfer. A quieter, more pliable commander in your place might save fewer men than you do. So you stay. You argue in planning meetings. You point out the geometry of the problem, the exposure, the casualty projections. The generals thank you for your input and tell you to proceed. Your battalion loses 40% of its strength. You write the report. You attend the next meeting. You develop a tremor in your left hand that appears only after the second drink. You stop counting drinks. You command the regiment. 2,000 to 3,000 men. You are too valuable to expose to the front line in any direct way. You are protected by your rank from the thing that kills most of the men you command. You work from a headquarters miles from the wire. You hear the artillery as background, a perpetual low pressure in the air, but it does not reach you the way it reaches the private standing on the fire step. You read casualty figures. 89, 112, 207. The numbers process through your mind the way freight moves through a rail yard, smoothly, without friction. A battalion at 60% is still capable. A battalion at 40% comes off the line. You make those determinations without feeling them in the way you once would have. You have had to. The alternative is paralysis, and paralysis gets more people killed than decisions do. Late at night, though, with the reports finished and the headquarters quiet, you pour something dark into a glass and sit with it. You remember being a private. The smell of the trench, the weight of the rifle, the specific faces of men who died within arm's reach of you. Men whose names you still know without trying. You sit with them for a while, then you put the glass down and go back to work.